your host, MCS1.
Alright, MCS1 in the house. I got my friend here, the original co-host of the MCS1 show with me, Caleb Hennon.
Woo!
How are you, Caleb?
So good.
It has been too long, my friend.
It really has, and it's great to be back.
It's great to have you back.
Well, thanks, man.
This is awesome. So, a lot's happened since our last show. I mean,
I'll say.
There's been a lot going on, so we got a lot to either catch up on, or skip,
Or make fun of.
and I more in the third category.
Yeah. We are definitely in that third category.
Definitely
today.
the third. So let's get started. So Caleb and I, we were talking a little while ago, and I have tons of topics that I want to do, but I'm always the one kind of picking the topics. And he brought up some really interesting topics to me, and I was like, wow, these are things that I didn't know too much about, but he had an amazing knowledge about them. And one of them is called Gamergate.
Yeah, so it's a big thing, if you want to really, learn a little bit more about it, like the big thing that you can really do, just look up the hashtag Gamergate. I don't really like suggesting people get on Twitter since I believe it's a soul-sucking social media construct, but
Social media is awful.
If you really do want to look into a little bit more, you can Google the hashtag Gamergate. You can Google a lot of different topics on this. Big shout out, one of the guys that I really have enjoyed listening to his viewpoints on this is a YouTuber by the name of Sargon of Akkad. He's I believe he's British. He's a guy out in the UK. He does a lot of really good stuff on it. So if you want to get some good information about this outside of what we talk about today, it's a great way for you to do that.
Cool. So Gamergate, as Caleb told me about this, and I was just like, he was explaining it to me, and I was just like, holy cow, how is this, one, not bigger, and two, wow, it was just ridiculous. And so, let's get started. So to start, like, all the way back for Gamergate, because the thing is, with Gamergate, it's so much going on with it. Like, it was ridiculous. When I started researching this, I felt overwhelmed by all the information. Like, there was so much. So, we're able to, with the notes that we have and the research we've done, we'll be able to take this crazy concept of Gamergate and condense it down and make it easier for you to understand in a more humorous, satirical way.
Yeah, hopefully, if you are confused about things, obviously, you can just drop us a comment or send us an email or something like that, and we'll be sure to answer it as best we can.
So, here's what we have here. So, it starts off with a singular person. Her name is Zoe Quinn.
Ooh.
And as it starts off with a singular person, it then starts off later with yet another person joining the singular person. So, this first singular person, Zoe Quinn, is a gamer? Question mark?
I never really got a clear answer on this. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I'm not sure if she actually is someone who plays games.
I've heard she is, but one thing we do know for sure is she is a feminist.
Yeah, that is for definite. Sure.
And let's say, for the sake of this, she is a gamer feminist.
Okay.
Whether she actually plays games or just says she plays games, we'll leave that up to the discretion of a Magic 8 Ball.
Sure. And totally, I totally agree with that assessment. Let's, for the sake of our discussion today, she's a feminist gamer.
Feminist gamer. So, the second person, because we mentioned it was a singular person, well, the second singular person that comes in is a journalist named Nathan Gray. And
Nathan Grayson.
Grayson. My bad. And so Nathan Grayson wrote a few articles about her and her gaming, quotations, and about her gaming and stuff, and at least two favorite articles about her. And he did this because they were having a sexual relationship. And this is...
scandalous.
Very scandalous. And this type of thing happens. I've seen House of Cards. I've seen what happens with Zoe Barnes and Frank Underwood.
You know, ironic that her name on House of Cards should also be Zoe.
Yeah. Wow.
Super funny.
Super funny. So, anyway, Zoe, Quinn, not Barnes, she's having this sexual relation with this Nathan Grayson. So, while this is going on, these articles are being published by her and a couple other journalists, are on like how to destroy the gaming community.
Yeah, and like why it sucks.
And yeah, stuff like that. And what's really odd about this is like she claims she's a gamer, and for the sake of this,
once again,
we're saying she is a gamer, but yet you are trying to destroy the community that you are a part of.
Yeah, which, I mean, that just feels stupid.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. I mean,
very much.
If you really are a part of a certain community, why are you spending your energy trying to blow it up?
Yeah.
And change everything?
The self-hatred is little odd here. But moving on, so the journalists, the ones that were like working with Zoe Quinn, not Bonds. They have this private Google group. And so with this, private Google group they have, which was called Game Journalism Professionals. This is real. You can Google it and see the group and not have access to it. And there was a topic that popped up on the group, and one of the topic was how to help Zoe Quinn, not Bonds, and get her articles promoted to help her promote her feminist agenda that video games are sexist. And this is kind of dishonest journalism, all these journalists coming together, and they were journalists who wrote for video game websites, magazines, the people that gamers would trust for their source of information
right,
and news. And there's this person who's sleeping with one of the journalists and like, hey, help promote her feminist agenda by tearing down what gamers are currently having as their norms. It just seems wrong and lying and just bad journalistic ethics.
Well, I mean, there's absolutely no integrity there. I mean, if you're over here saying, well, I want to promote this agenda, what's the quickest way that I can do it? And for Zoe Quinn as a woman to say, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go sleep with one of these guys.
And here's the thing. She may have just been dating him and sleeping him and helping him out, but still using that.
Well, using that as leverage.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it comes down to, is that she's saying, okay, well, I have this great connection. And I mean, yeah, sure, use your resources that you have, but come on. I mean,
have some integrity.
It just seems, I don't understand why people didn't pick up on this sooner. And more importantly, I don't understand how Nathan Grayson's employers didn't pick up on this sooner and say, hey man, look, you're promoting Zoe a lot, and we get it, y'all are banging, but come on, let's dial it back a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that didn't get nipped in the bud like that.
Yeah, and it just kept going and escalating to the point of where there's this Google group with everyone hanging out, and they're like, how can we all promote Zoe's,
agenda, basically.
Agenda.
Yeah.
And so that's when the gamers were like, all right, we've had enough. And so they started striking back.
Well, and that's the thing, is that, gamers, you love them or hate them, but they're not going to back down. This is their hobby.
Very aggressive.
They love gaming, and there's nothing wrong with having a hobby. Everybody has hobbies, but the fact of the matter is that gamers are the one group that finally just said, nah, you're not going to push us around. This is what we like to do. We know it's not this way. We know you have an agenda, and it's not going to fly with us.
Yeah. And so then eventually, as these gamers aren't backing down, everyone else is seeing this like kind of blowing up, and every time there is a crisis, there's always someone who's going to try to run in and get some free press.
Oh, totally.
And there's just always going to be to be someone. Every time there's a disaster, don't let it go to waste. Use the press to piggyback your fame. And that is exactly what happened. So another force popped up in here. And her name is... Caleb, could you say her name for me? I have a hard time saying this sometimes.
I don't like saying it, but Anita Sarkeesian.
Anita Sarkeesian came. So she's a third-wave feminist. And we'll discuss more on this toward the end of the show. But so she comes in and she's like, this is wrong. This shouldn't happen. And so she has this YouTube channel. Talk about this. It's called Feminist Frequency.
Yeah.
And it's...
Oh, boy.
We probably sound like chauvinistic pigs for laughing at that. But if you watched it, you'd understand. And so she had this series on there called Tropes versus Women, which she won an award for from someone. I can't remember where she won it from or something, but she...
Yeah, it's escaping me right now.
Yeah, but she did win an award for it, so cool. Go, Anita. We're proud of you for winning this one award. I received a participation ribbon when I went to track and field day in elementary school. So, congrats, you've beaten me.
Well, let's face it, she piggybacked on.
Oh, yeah.
She piggybacked on 100%.
Never mind.
She did not care about this particular issue until she saw that it could be profitable for her.
Oh, this is true. You know what? I take it back. You didn't do better than my participation ribbon.
No, your participation ribbon is way more valid. Mm-hmm. You participated.
I gave it my whatever.
From the beginning, you participated.
I gave it my effort.
At least you didn't join halfway through and just get a participation trophy for half the day.
Yeah, wouldn't be so bad. But so she comes in and she just starts piggybacking on all of this fame with everything's going on with Gamergate and promoting her feminist agenda. So before we get into that a little bit more and the backlash that she suffered for getting involved for this.
Suffered. Like, okay. All right.
So she had their Feminist Frequency channel and her Tropes versus Women. The interesting thing about all of those, I watched about half of the series.
Bless your little heart, man. Bless your little heart.
I have watched Snakes on a Plane. I have seen Sharknado. And Lost in Space.
Are you saying that these are like the journalistic equivalents to those particular pieces
all
of
I can say
art?
is I finished those. But I did not finish this.
Zing!
And I'll leave it at that. No, I won't. So, her YouTube channel, here's an interesting thing for social media. I have many qualms with social media. Being as I used to work at a marketing firm, and I see social media a lot differently than other people. And I feel like it's a good tool, but most of the time I love saying social media sucks because it's misused.
Yeah.
And it does cause so many problems. And so here is an example of misuse for her channel. There's no place to leave comments on any of her videos.
Yeah, and I mean, if she wants to pretend like she has this great level of integrity, why can't we say anything?
What bothers me is, for this, she is saying the conversation is one-sided.
Yeah. As
in, I have something to say. No, I don't care what your opinion on it is. I matter, you don't. It's quite disrespectful if you think about it. And another thing, in addition to that, she also has no likes or dislike buttons.
So all of that's disabled on her channel.
That's disabled. The discussion forum, which some YouTube channels have, it's kind of weird. She also doesn't have that.
Okay.
She's kind of got it to where she's got earplugs in while wearing while wearing those earmuffs.
Oh, yeah.
And then shouting into a megaphone.
Yeah.
That's kind of what she's doing.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what, again, going back to the phrase, it's kind of what third wave feminism embodies.
Yeah. And so everything's like disabled. And one thing I noticed about her channel, and I do a lot of overanalyzing on people, I will admit that, but it's not just what she was saying, it's how she was saying it. Like her facial expressions and tone. It was like, I don't want to say nihilistic, because there was feeling behind it, but it was just massively negative towards everything. And it wasn't really doing anything convincing. It's like it was designed to offend rather than educate. And I don't know how to say this. Like, she's just kind of a...
Well, a giant bitch,
yeah,
first of all.
That's it, yeah. And her beliefs are just so extreme about feminism. And it just seems unhealthy. And so with this Tropes versus Women series, tying back to Gamergate, they're all about video games and pop culture. And so here's another thing. She says she's a gamer in all of these interviews. I'm a gamer. I played video games.
Yeah.
I love Angry Birds. And
I mean, who doesn't?
And gosh.
Except for that movie coming out. What is that?
That's gonna bomb.
Horrible decisions, Hollywood.
So she is like, yeah, I play video games. I'm pretty big into the crushing candy games. The Candy Crusher.
It's not what it's called, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
And so, but in an early video in the year 2011, she is seen giving this presentation, and she says she didn't know much about video games. She didn't play them growing up, despite in past interviews saying she had. Mm-hmm. And she had to learn a lot about video games and didn't like them in order to put together that presentation that she'd used.
High levels of integrity.
Yes.
Clearly.
And so here's just kind of an example. And she does bring up some interesting points on her channel. I'll give her that. But the way it's conveyed and the way she just attacks everything, and a lot of stuff that she goes after and attacks, it's not even modern day things. It's older things. And so one of them, for example, this is one I found interesting. This is called the Smurfette Principle. And what this is, and this is taken directly from her channel, is the tendency for works of fiction to have exactly one female amongst an ensemble of male characters, in spite of the fact that roughly half the race is female. Unless a show is purposefully aimed at a female viewing audience, the main characters will tend to be disproportionately male. This was from one of her shows. I can't remember if it's like episode 4 or 5. I think it was called TV Tropes. And so, shows she listed in here for this was Star Wars.
Okay.
Winnie the Pooh.
Wow.
The Muppets.
Really? The Muppets?
The Muppets, Miss Piggy.
But I'm not too familiar with the Muppets, I'll be honest. I'm not. But
a lot of them seem genderless now that I'm thinking about it. Or
yeah.
I never really had that on my mind. Because I'm like, they're freaking puppets? Well, I mean, they're foam with strings coming from the pipe things from the bottom.
They're Muppets.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess from Miss Piggy and just no other females. And you can't go to Muppet Babies. You can't say Scooter's twin from Muppet Babies, his twin sister. You can't say that.
I honestly, I mean, to be fair, I honestly can't think of any other Muppets.
I can too. Like I can't remember the name, but the Dr. Teeth's band, the bass player, I think she's a girl.
Okay.
And I think there are a couple other female Muppets. I'm starting to think more and more.
Yeah, no idea. It's really, sorry, man. No help here.
It's just really strange. But anyway, it is still disproportionate, and not just one female thing. But like, a lot of those things were made like for the 80s.
Well, and
unless you count the new Star Wars, and I'm talking the prequels.
Ugh.
Not the I guess the new one as well. A disproportionate universe as well. But still,
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, yes, yeah, sure, there are more guys involved, but I'm sorry, but more guys like Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's like something about war.
Yeah, it's a violent film.
Yeah, and I did find the Smurfette Principle interesting, which is why I
Sure.
brought it up. I was like, wow, that is kind of cool. But some other things she said, this really was funny. Is she called Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen one of the most racist and sexist films she's ever seen. You know, I guess she's never seen Undercover Brother. I'm not, yeah, like...
Obviously not, man.
Obviously not. I don't see her being a good moviegoer. I don't see Anita getting too many dates to the movies.
Well, I mean, let's be serious, though, but what guy can approach her and say, hey, do you want to go to the movies without being accused of harassing her?
Exactly.
Because according to her, everything is racist, everything is sexist, and we just have to point it out.
Everything.
And it's like, so a guy asking a girl out on a date must be sexist, right?
Everything is sexist. Everything is racist if you look hard enough. Everything is sexist. I mean, seriously though.
Yeah, no, but it's true. I mean,
feminism stuff.
Oh man, great song. But that's the thing though. That's the thing about this though is that third wave feminism, like they seems to say that they think and they say that, okay, well, in order for you to do anything, you have to obtain permission, right? But at the same time that you're obtaining this permission, you have to also be bold and spontaneous. But not too bold and spontaneous, because if you're too bold and spontaneous, that's harassment. And you're gonna get a lawsuit slapped on you. And it's just like, well, what can you even do?
Speaking of harassment and lawsuits and Anita, let's talk about some backlash that she received.
Sure, absolutely.
From this.
Absolutely.
She got just flamed over Twitter.
Yep.
Like crazy. People were going after her and they were saying, you know, gamers in particular, they were saying things like, you know, I'm gonna kill you and I'm gonna rape you and
sure,
all this other stuff. It's like, I don't know if anyone's played Call of Duty. I've never personally played Call of Duty, but I've watched people play Call of Duty. And I can even take this one step further. I've watched people play video games. And when you are behind a screen of any kind, like your phone, your tablet, your computer, Jumbotron. No, not Jumbotron.
Not Jumbotron.
Not Jumbotron.
Nope,
my bad.
Not that one.
But you
put it back.
You put on this mask of
toughness.
Of toughness,
yeah.
And no identity.
Yeah.
And you can hide. Everyone is... there was like a Dilbert comic in there, and in it said, everyone is tougher behind a computer screen.
Absolutely.
And it's true. Yeah. I'm tougher behind a computer screen.
Yeah, because you get to be a fictional character.
Exactly. And, you know, people... It provides this mask of disidentity. And people don't always think straight when they're behind a screen.
No, because if you can get away with saying whatever you want, let's face it, human nature is going to say, yeah, if I can get away with this, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and people just don't act rational because they don't have that face-to-face interaction as well. They don't hear it. And so, to them, it removes a lot of accountability for things, when in reality, it's probably stupid a lot of things you do or say.
Absolutely. Like
Brett Favre showing his wiener to some chick over the phone.
Oh, Brett.
So, I mean,
Brett.
It's a lot like that. And so, of course, you're going to receive angry threats, things like that.
Sure.
People get threatened all the time. When people do threats, they're trying to hide behind something.
Sure. But here's the thing, though. Is that really, like, a level of harassment? I mean, I've played some online video games before, and people always say stuff like that. They always do. I've been told so many times that someone's going to fuck my mom that I can't even count it. And I mean, if that's true... but here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing about that. My point with this is obviously that's horrible. It's horrifying. I don't want people to be, saying that about my mom. I'm not saying that that's okay, but I'm just saying, like, It happens. You're in a gaming community. Gamers say those things.
And the social norms are completely different.
Oh, totally different. Totally different.
Completely.
Because it's a virtual world.
Yeah. It's not the same. And so, obviously, Anita didn't understand this, but one other thing is, she was going to speak, I can't remember if it was the University of Utah or Utah State. Did you hear about this, Caleb?
I did.
Do you know all the details? Do you want to explain it, or would you like me to?
Go ahead. I don't know all the details.
Okay.
More than anything else, I just kind of heard about it a little bit. Didn't really research it because I was like, ugh.
So she was supposed to speak at like this feminist club or whatever. A threat came that the person there was someone who was going to kill her. Says feminism has ruined his life. He hates her. Things like that. And like I said, when people do threats, they're usually all talk, or they're trying to stop 100%. Something. Yeah, and it's like when I'm upset at you, and like if I'm going to do something and I'm going to get revenge, I'm not going to call you up and say,
heck no.
Hey, Phil, guess what? I'm going to throw a rock through your window.
No, you're just going to do it.
Screw you, Phil.
You're just going to do it.
Yeah.
You're just going to do it.
I'm going to do it.
Like, what's the point of sending a threat?
Yeah, like you don't even know.
You don't even know, guys. You don't even know how much of a threat these things are.
Yeah.
You don't even know.
They're not really threats.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah. And so it was canceled. And I think I haven't read much, but this was probably her only time to speak at a college. Well, I haven't read anything else that showed that she has spoken at other colleges.
Yeah.
Maybe this just destroyed her college speaking career, which for the best.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about it too that's really funny about it is that the one thing that I did hear about this, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but it's a rumor that I heard about this, is that she still demanded to be paid.
Oh.
Like she was like, oh, even though I didn't actually do the thing that I was going to say, that I said that I was going to do, you guys should still reimburse me for my time and for my traveling expenses.
Traveling expenses, I could understand that.
And I mean, sure, but she was like, I need my normal fee. Like, I didn't do anything, but I need to get paid.
I didn't indoctrinate anyone.
Yeah.
But I'm going to need somebody to comp for that, too.
But I super deserve my paycheck.
Yeah.
Can I get that, please?
Yeah. I didn't show up to work today, but anyway, back to Anita. Actually, we're still on Anita.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Anita's credentials.
Okay.
So, before the show, Caleb and we were going over the notes. And I was like, and there's a line in here, it says, Anita, master's degree.
Sure.
And I'm like, yeah, she has a master's degree. And Caleb, what would you say her master's degree was in?
I was like, yeah, it's probably like gender studies or something like that.
And that was... And I was like, we should look into what it actually is. And it's social and political thought. And then we analyzed this a bit more. We're like, well, what's that mean? What can you get?
I mean, what can you really do with that?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, social and political thought. Like, are you running for Congress, Anita?
Yeah, well, I mean...
Are you going to be the head... Are you going to be a reporter for the Washington Herald and work with a congressman and sleep with him?
Most likely that last thing.
And then Zoe Bongs. Is that what you're going to do?
Well, I mean, honestly, my first thought when we kind of looked up a little bit of what her credentials were, is I was reminded of an episode of that 70s show.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Sure.
It's basically a glorified philosophy degree, people.
Yeah. It really is. It really is.
And which is, there's not quite any real shame in that, but master's, it's like, what can you do?
What are you going to do with a master's in philosophy or a master's in social and political thought? I don't know, man. It's like I was saying, like about that 70s show. Lori, I think, is Eric's.
Lori, yeah, it's
sister.
Lori.
So Lori comes in and her dad says, Red says, hey, what are you going to study at college? And she says, oh, I'm thinking about going into philosophy. And Eric comes back with just the greatest burn of all time. He's just like, oh, good, because they just opened up a philosophy factory in Green Bay, so you can go ahead and apply your knowledge there. Like, okay. Yeah,
and let's talk about what she has done since this degree of philosophy that she has obtained. So, she started this YouTube channel.
Sure.
She has a blog.
Mm-hmm.
She's been a subject of controversy.
Yep.
She won't allow people to comment on her crap. or
none of that.
challenge her views.
No, well, that's the thing, is like, if you can't be challenged, if nobody can challenge what you're saying, then you're basically tyrannical in your small tiny sector
of being mentally challenged.
You're a tyrant. You're a tyrant in your small tiny section. Like, it's like Anita's just a tyrant over feminist frequency.
I am king of the corner.
You see this corner? It's mine.
This corner of this room or right here is mine.
You better not touch it.
Yeah. So let's talk about. So she's had a blog, a YouTube series, kind of modern things. Let's switch gears.
Okay.
From her.
Thank you.
To someone else. And then we're going to tie this back to Gamergate and how this all applies. Christina Sommers.
Yeah. Big fan. Big fan of Christina Sommers.
So she is an educated feminist. She has a PhD, not just a master's, a PhD in philosophy.
Okay.
Now, we asked earlier, what can you do with a philosophy degree? Well, she answers that question and then makes us feel bad for asking it.
No, she answers it emphatically, you could even say.
Yeah, and so she has appeared on several TV shows. Oprah, Nightline, to name two of them. She has taught at 2 universities. She has 2 sons. Her husband, she's only been married once. And she was married a long time. Her husband just passed away 2 years ago. Quite sad. She wrote, she's written 5 books total. One book she's won an award for. It was from the National Women's Political Caucus.
Okay.
And this book is called The War Against Boys: How Misguided Feminism is Harming Our Young Men. Now, this seems like, wow. Like, that line right there, I would not think a feminist wrote that. But as we said, third wave feminist. And there's a difference between these first and second wave feminists and then third wave. And so this lady here, she wrote this book. And Caleb, you read some of this.
Yeah, I've read some excerpts. I haven't read a lot of it, but honestly, it's one of the better, one of the more well-written arguments against, against feminism in this final wave. One of the things that
hopefully final wave.
Well, sorry, but by final, I mean
current,
most recent. Yeah, I should have said current wave. But one of the things that she brings up is basically just that, and it's kind of like we talked about a little bit earlier. She brings up the fact that, because of romantic comedies, women want these, spontaneous, attractive men to just sweep them off their feet. But at the same time, he better be asking me for my permission to sweep me off my feet.
As seen in 50 Shades of Grey.
Obviously. I mean,
not that I've seen 50 Shades of Grey.
There was probably a safe word.
Or read 50 Shades of Grey.
I don't believe you.
Or have the audiobook for 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh boy, now.
Narrated by the guy who voices Winnie the Pooh. Oh, bother.
And she said, oh, bother.
Oh, bother. And there was no honey to go around from Christian Grey. And the 100-acre wood was barren.
So disgusting.
So wrong. Anyway.
So horrifying.
I'm not going to edit that out. But she seems like a reasonable person.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Why does she seem like a reasonable person? Well, it's probably because she's a reasonable person.
Right.
And so, since she's reasonable, and she's a feminist, she's like, what's going on with this whole thing?
Yeah.
This whole game, this seems weird and crazy. And so, she had, and I'm paraphrasing this, she looked into it, and she started, combating a lot of stuff that's coming out from Gamergate, from these awful journalists, from people like Anita
Sarkeesian.
And
our friend Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan and Zoe Quinn. not to be confused with Zoe Bonds. And
although it is quite confusing.
It is quite confusing, and we have dropped a lot of House of Cards references this episode, and I cannot wait for Kevin Spacey to serve us a lawsuit letter, personally.
Gigantic subpoena. It's on its way.
That would be awesome. Such a great show. And so, here's what she said about Gamergate and games, and I am paraphrasing this. This is not quoting or anything like this. This is paraphrased. It says, there are games that fit a vast array of preferences. And there are appropriate female protagonists. Very true.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet, video game gender police have become harsh, intolerant, and relentless. Many want more than women on both sides of the screen. They want the male video game culture to die.
Seems a bit extreme, but the fact of the matter is that it's kind of true.
Yeah, and that's what it is. That's what's going down here. And that's, like, sad. She also called, besides the term video game gender police, she also called the people who were writing these articles, these new journalists or whatever, the Gamergate people, she called them gender activists and hipsters with degrees in cultural studies. not as funny as saying they have a master in gender studies, although that I wonder, is that a thing?
Dude, gender studies is a legitimate
but
degree.
I mean a master's.
I don't know if there's a master's in that.
I wonder.
I just kind of assumed because it's, Anita Sarkeesian.
I don't know. I'm going to put in some calls to University of Phoenix later and see what we can find.
Hey, y'all need to get one of them gender studies master's degrees.
I'm looking for a new career here.
Well, hey man, if you're anything like Anita, you can make it pretty profitable.
Indeed. So, here's what happens after Christina Sommers says all this stuff. The journalists from the same Google group, they try to discredit her instantly. And here's the thing, all these journalists that are discrediting her, she's done more, than probably all of them combined, intellectually,
absolutely, educationally,
just in general.
Well, and ironically, she's done more for feminism than these people. And 100%.
Yeah, and it's like, can you tell me some of the response?
So a lot of the things, they would come out and they would say things like, oh, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about, she's not even a real gamer, and all this other stuff, and she would basically come back with, well, neither are you. You guys don't play video games, and she would say, I'm not touching on video games. I'm touching on the integrity in the journalism, and I'm touching on the integrity within feminism and within my area of expertise. You guys are cherry picking too a lot of the things that I'm saying.
Exactly.
It's what she's saying is, one of the biggest things that she said was like, they'll take a sentence here and a sentence there, put them together, and of course it sounds bad.
It's like just going through the Bible and then blacking out everything you hate.
Yeah.
Thou shalt kill thy neighbor's wife.
Yeah. You can, if you black everything out, you can make it say whatever the heck you want.
It can be a really crazy book.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, but that's the thing is that she came back very logically, she came back very reasonably, and she just said, hey, you guys are projecting on me what you're doing. I'm not doing this. You are.
You're ruining they're ruining what she's built up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was the thing is, and that was the other thing that she kind of brought to their attention as well. Is she said, look, and one of the things that she said was, look, feminism is about equality. But you guys want the opposite of that. You guys want men to be put on, in these little pits and treated basically as lesser class citizens, and they want to put women on these pedestals. And she said that is the exact thing that I fought in the opposite side. Basically saying that she wanted women to get up off their knees and men to get off their pedestals and just come to an equal ground. And that's. That's what she was fighting for, and I don't like saying buzzwords, but she was fighting for equality, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And that's admirable.
And here's the thing. Here's the battle they're choosing to go after, these third wave feminists. They're going after gamers. They're not going after things like music videos.
Oh, yeah.
With backup dancers.
Yeah.
And like 3 minutes of, seeing chicks' breasts.
Yeah.
And like things like that. Inequality, there's no issue with that.
No, absolutely not. But here's the other thing that they're not doing. And this is something that if these third wave feminists really cared about equality, what they would be doing is trying to help women in other countries that are actually oppressed.
Yeah.
There's no oppression here anymore. The number one thing on this one too is, and people always say, well, whatever, it's not equal here either. And it's like, well, okay, but if it's not equal, then it's not legal, because the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s, as well as the Equal Pay Act of 1965, I believe it was 1965, says you can't pay someone with equal experience and with equal credentials less than somebody else based on gender, race, religion, or class. You can't. And if that is happening, I'm going to urge you guys, anybody that's listening to this, if that is happening, report it, because it's not legal. But the fact of the matter is that, and Christina Hoff Sommers has done a bunch of studies about this as well. She actually did a study saying, I'm going to prove that women make less than men. And the funny thing about it is that she actually didn't find that to be true. And when she pulled out all these different studies on it, she was like, well, it's not. It's not true. And she said, and now the thing is too, is that even the statistics that were thrown out today about that, they're cherry-picked. They're cherry-picked 100%, because she says, and one of the things that she came up with was, women that have the same amount of experience, the same amount of college education, the same amount of years on the job, and the same amount of everything that a man has in the same profession, they actually make the same amount. And in some cases, they make more, which is fine. If you want to pay someone more, you pay someone more. But you have to be able to justify it, and that's fine. But again, if people want to come out and say like all these things like, oh, well, women are oppressed in America, you're lying to yourself. It's bullshit. The fact of the matter is that women are no longer oppressed here. They were. I'm not saying they weren't, but it's not happening anymore.
And I'm sure there are a few cases here and there where some things do happen.
Sure, but there are also cases the other way too.
Exactly.
My boss right now, he's a guy named Doug. Okay, now where he used to work, I'm sure everybody's heard of when in TV shows they always project it as this this big boys club. The boys club runs the company, right? Well, where he was, it was a girls club. And only girls got promoted, and only girls advanced, and only girls got raises. And the fact of the matter is that that's how they wanted to run their business. Now, the problem with that is that according to, once again, the Equal Rights Pay Act, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Yeah, it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. And it does need to be counted that way. And again, I urge anybody who is listening to this, if you know of something that has been verified that actually shows that is happening in your workplace, report it immediately. It's illegal, and your boss will go to jail. Period. End of sentence. I'm serious. There's no 3-strike rule on this.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's so serious. If that is found to be true, whether it's based on religion, race, creed, gender, whatever it is, you will go to prison. Immediately.
You will not pass go, and you will not collect $200.
You won't be collecting anything. Nothing. Straight to prison.
Straight to prison.
And those are the facts. People need to understand that.
So let's move on. We mentioned a lot about third wave feminism.
Right.
A little bit.
Right.
Let's talk the difference between first, second, and then let's go to third.
Sure. It makes sense.
Yeah, so would you like to go?
Sure.
Caleb gave a really good summary of this before the show to me, and I was like, wow, this is really good. So I think it's best he explains this.
So as far as I've understood, and as far as a lot of the things that I've read from Christina Hoff Sommers and things that I've heard her say in different conferences, first wave feminism was basically, we need to be allowed to work just like men are, and that was something that happened during World War II, and honestly I think it was even a little bit during World War I. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I very well could be. But the big thing was, we want to be able to work, and we want to be able to do these things that men are doing. We don't want to just be stuck at home. And so in that first wave of feminism, the big thing was, put us to work, and it happened. But the difference here, and once again, this is one of the differences, is that they worked. They were willing to work. They didn't want any handouts. They didn't want to be given anything. They wanted to earn what they got, and that's great. Super. You have to respect that. And then the second wave of feminism came in basically where it was like, we want the right to vote. we want to also be allowed to vote. And you know what? And that was another thing. Totally needed to happen. And it absolutely should. Women have thoughts just as much as men have thoughts. They have opinions just as much as men have opinions. They should be allowed to do all of these different things as well. You know, things like voting. And again, absolutely great, super awesome thing. And along with the right to vote is when the Civil Rights Act, not the Civil Rights Act, the Equal Pay Act came up, which was, you know, we need to pay men and women the same if they are, you know, that was basically during that second wave of feminism, was the equal pay and the ability to vote. And again, a great thing. Absolutely great thing. You know, I feel like if anybody can provide value, then they should be able to do, you know, they should be able to be paid the same. But then comes in third wave feminism, and this is the way that Mark and I kind of talked about this a little bit before the show, was it's kind of more the feminazi movement. It's no longer about equality. It's a lot more now about we need to be considered better than a man. And if we're not considered better than a man, then you're sexist. And that's not fair. That's not equality. Like, again, I really do hate using buzzwords, you know, like things like equality, but the fact of the matter is that it's no longer about equal rights. It's no longer about making women equal to men. It's now about making men less than women. I mean, it's honestly, that's kind of been portrayed a little bit in current day media as well. I mean, dudes in TV shows now are big dumb monkeys that can't really think for themselves.
And the wife is always the one, like, during the commercial, the husband, like, spills something on the couch. He's like, I'm pretty stupid. And the wife's like, oh, honey, why did I marry you? Oh, it's because we got pregnant in college. And it's like, as a mom, you know how to clean up your dumb, idiot husband's messes.
It seriously is like that.
And that is, but here's the thing. It's like, that's the market they're trying to go to.
Sure. And that's fine.
And that is fine. And you know what? That's the same applies for gaming.
Yeah.
That's the market that the developers are going towards.
Yeah.
Is gamers that, you know, have those types of mentalities.
Well,
it's not that gamers are necessarily really, really bad and horrible people. It's that the developers and the marketers know their audience.
Yeah.
Because gamers are kind of...
They're more loners. They kind of just...
Yeah.
They're not exactly... Obviously, they're not the nicest people in the world. I mean, if you've ever been in an online chat room in a video game, you know that they're not exactly the kindest people to talk to.
Yeah.
You know, as far as women go, I mean, they like their chicks scantily clad, and that's just probably because they don't really talk to a lot of women because they're too busy chilling in their basement.
Parents' basement.
Fair enough. But
whether that's true or not, I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
But that's the thing, is that and the fact of the matter is that the gaming industry knows their market, and they should be applauded, honestly, for understanding their market and then gearing the things that they do towards their market.
Yeah.
You also notice that in the gaming industry, there's no, you know, fat guy who's super obese saving the world. It doesn't happen. It's always some super fit guy with some crazy cool talents.
They know their audience just as, like, sports marketers know their audience.
Absolutely.
And so since we're talking, like, you know, broad sports, here's the thing about the feminist industry. Not really. I guess, you know, it is kind of an industry.
It really is.
They're turning it into it, these third-wave feminists.
They're making money off of it. It's absolutely an industry.
Yeah. And so... First, Caleb brought up some really interesting points about all the industries that this feminist industry has tackled.
Oh no, and
before the show, do you want to run through that? It's really interesting.
Well, I mean, so they hit on, you know, on sports, and they basically said, like, oh well, you know, there should be, you know, women's sports are just as important as men's sports and all this stuff, and you know, all of the sporting industry just said, oh yeah, let's bend over backwards for you and let's make this happen. You know, and then the same thing happened in the political spectrum. You know, they said, oh, there's not enough women in Congress. There's not enough women in the House of Representatives. There's not enough women that want to be president and all this stuff. And so then, you know, the political spectrum again, they said, oh, well, you know what, let's bend over backwards. There was absolutely no resistance. And then they came to gaming, and they were like,
not that those first two were bad either.
No, well,
really.
And I mean, it's fine. Like, I mean, sure, but here's the thing though too. I mean, and I'm completely biased in this one, but I really don't like watching women's sports.
I like soccer.
I don't even like watching that. Like, and I know people will say, well, women's volleyball is great. And it's like, yeah, that's because you're a perv.
Glad I said soccer now instead of volleyball. Now I don't seem like a perv.
I'm sorry, dude, but in any sport where you can rip your shirt off after winning and it's considered something that you should be applauded for, you're kind of a perv too. It's okay. It's okay, Mark. It's okay. But the fact of the matter is that, I mean, the WNBA versus the NBA, for instance. The NBA has way more fans and more women watch the NBA than the WNBA. It's just a fact. They don't like it as much. And here's another interesting factoid, actually, that I should mention on women in sports really quick. There's a guy named another YouTuber named Milo Yiannopoulos, and he actually talks about how the U.S. women's hockey team, you know how they train before they do the Olympics? They play a game, they play scrimmages against men's high school hockey teams, who they lose to.
Oh, that is so sad.
And then they go out and they win the gold medal every single time. But it's because they played against competition that was better at the sport than them. And that's just how it goes. I'm not saying like, oh, well, women's hockey is stupid. I'm just saying I'd rather see two dudes tackling each other than, than two chicks tackling each other.
And on the subject of hockey is just like two guys fighting the whole time.
It's basically just two guys fighting on a really slick arena.
Yeah, that's really about it.
I mean, as far as I understand, I'm not Canadian. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But no, but the thing is that all of these other things, they bent over backwards and they were just like, yeah, we're not going to resist you at all. But then they came to gamers, and the gamer industry was just like, nah, this isn't going to happen, and it basically, it's kind of like we talked about before the show.
It is the fairly stoppable force meets the immovable object,
which is gamers,
and the force could have been stopped easily.
Oh, very easily.
I mean, it's okay. I feel women in politics. I don't feel that's so bad.
No, it's
Title
not.
IX.
It's not.
Title IX hasn't affected me in a very negative way at all.
Absolutely not.
So I feel those are completely justified. But, and it just kept rolling, and I guess they thought, their victories. Then they came to something that really didn't need it.
No, at all.
And then, it got stopped dead in their tracks.
Well, they haven't really advanced.
And, yeah, they didn't advance any struggles with this.
No.
Causing a lot of controversy.
Well, and if they think that they've won this Gamergate thing, I mean, the gaming industry is more profitable than it's been in years.
Yeah, they did nothing to stop it.
No, nothing at all. I mean, and that's the thing about it is that, that's the big issue here is that, if somebody says something stupid, they should be called out on it.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. If we say something stupid and we're wrong about something, I hope somebody listens and says, hey, you're wrong about this. Here are the facts. And I hope they're actual facts and not just, these are my feelings on what you said.
My feelings are in the comments.
I mean, I'm sorry, but the fact of the matter is that in the world today, nobody cares about your feelings, okay? Nobody gives a shit about how you feel about things. And if they do, they're your parents.
Oh,
all right?
Or spouse or family.
Whatever. They're your relatives. And even then, your uncles don't care. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, how do you feel about this certain issue that's randomly affecting almost nobody? Oh, you feel that way? Great, let's write an article about it.
How do you feel about global warming, Timmy?
Your uncles aren't going to ask you that shit. They're going to be like, hey, do you want chocolate or vanilla ice cream? That's pretty much all they're going to ask you, because if you have cool uncles, they're taking you out to get some ice cream.
I want some ice cream.
I want some ice cream, too. This is all sad now. But anyway, it's just silly. I mean...
Yeah, so Gamergate, wrapping it up, as a whole, it accomplished nothing with its feminist agenda.
No,
Zoe didn't get anything.
No.
Anita is nationally hated. There are tons of YouTube videos just dedicated to ripping her apart.
Oh, yeah.
She is someone we can rally behind to destroy.
Oh, yeah.
That is what she has turned into. She's turned into basically a symbol of awfulness.
Yeah, well,
it's like that how you want to be remembered?
It's basically, I mean, it's like I can't remember the movie, but there's this movie where this drill sergeant is just an absolute dickhead to all of his new recruits.
Full Metal Jacket.
I'm sure. I don't know. I don't remember. Anyway, but he's like being just this horrible person. And one of the generals finally comes in and they say, "Hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You're making them all hate you." And he's like, "Good. I'd rather have them be unified in their hatred of me than divided in their hatred of other things.
Oh.
And that's what Anita Sarkeesian has become. She is the uniting force of hatred. She is
against
the
third
drill
wave
sergeant.
feminism.
Yeah. No, she is. She's united gamers and other people against third wave feminism.
Wow.
That's what's happened.
Talk about, and this, it's funny because this goes back to what we said in the beginning with Zoe, who was a gamer who wanted to shut down gaming. Why would you turn against your own community?
Right.
And that is exactly what Anita has done here, even without knowing it, obviously, or maybe she does.
Maybe she does. I don't think, honestly, if she does know, she doesn't care. She just cares about getting paid.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, she knows nothing about games, and then she admits that she knows nothing, and then she turns around and says, "Oh yeah, I know everything about games.
Yeah,
I've been a gamer my whole life."
Yeah, I'm really big into that Farmer Town thing on Facebook.
That one's fun. You build stuff, right?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it.
Anyway, that's our show. I want to thank Caleb for coming on. It was great having you, Caleb.
Anytime.
And until next time, take care of yourself and each other.